BAPS wellNESS, and it was launched this year at the summer fair. So we did a combination of healthy smoothies, live cooking demonstrations, and exercise workouts to engage and educate the community. This project has been inspired by our gurus, Param Pujya Pramukh Swami Maharaj and Pujya Mahan Swami Maharaj, who have both been keen advocates of healthy eating and lifestyle. They emphasize its importance for both physical well-being and spiritual growth. Their disciplined diets are characterized by portion control and a focus on simple, nutritious food. Their teachings and personal examples serve as an inspiration to us to maintain a balanced diet and lifestyle for a healthy body and spirit. So just to expand on the BAPS Wellness Project, as we know, the South Asian community is disproportionately affected by conditions such as diabetes and heart disease. And so promoting a healthy lifestyle from a young age is critical for prevention. We recognize the importance of taking a holistic approach to health and well-being. And so with this in mind, the BAPS Wellness Project focuses on 4 key areas: nutrition, exercise, sleep management, and stress management. So today's first webinar will focus on nutrition. We will then be conducting webinars every 2 to 3 months and focus on all different areas. So we have also released a new vegan and vegetarian recipe book as part of this initiative, which I'm sure some of you may have already seen. This book is a collaboration from doctors, nutritionists, and our satsangis to create tasty, healthy dishes for people to enjoy at home, and it's available to buy in our bookstall. So I'm delighted to introduce our guest today, Sujata Din, who will be giving a talk on healthy Indian meals. Sujata is a qualified health and cancer coach. She is also a personal trainer and a meditation teacher. She believes that true well-being comes from a balance of healthy diet, mindful living, and positive attitude. She runs both one-on-one and group programs to support chronic conditions like type 2 diabetes and heart disease, as well as to improve digestion, supporting clients improve digestion and energy levels. Sujata has also kindly contributed several lovely recipes to our new book, and she joined us at the Festival of Inspiration and the Summer Fair this year to do some healthy cooking demonstrations. So we are very happy to welcome her back today to educate us more on the power of healthy eating. So please feel free to send in questions throughout the talk via the chat box, and Sujata will try to answer as many as possible at the end of the talk. So please direct your questions over to me through the chat box.
Hello, everyone. I am so happy to have so many of you here this evening to learn about healthy Indian meals. And we're going to be talking about how to get healthier, how to lose weight while still having our traditional Indian meals. The training today is really for, informational purposes. What I would love for you to do is just to make some notes while I'm going through it. It is being recorded. So if you do want to come back to it, you can come back to it again and again as well. But, my intention really is to show you that Indian food can be healthy if you just learn how to make just a few simple changes. And by making a few simple changes, you'll find that, your health, your well-being is able to really improve in so many ways as well. Chani, I'm just going to say there are some people in the waiting room. If you want to let them in, I shall let you do that. Okay, so sometimes people think, eating healthy is going to be boring, it's going to be bland, it's going to take too much time, or it's going to be expensive. Now, you don't need to count calories. I never teach counting calories. I don't know the calories, in fact, in an apple versus a banana or, in any of the foods. I just don't know calories. What I do is talk about eating mindfully, eating intuitively, understanding what your body needs, and making sure that, you're able to get a balanced diet. So, you'll always be able to do this without counting calories. The training today is not providing any diagnosis or treatment of any health conditions. It's here for your informational, educational, and self-empowerment purposes. Because when we take charge of our own health, we can actually make a change. We've got quite a few doctors here today, and I'm sure when you visit your doctor, they will let you know what the diagnosis is. And often a doctor will say, okay, now you need to go home and begin making changes. So that's where somebody like myself steps in. But if you do feel unwell, I recommend speaking to your GP, your wellness team, just to get the right diagnosis and treatment that you need. So I'm a health coach, I'm a cancer coach, personal trainer, and meditation teacher. A very, very long time ago, over 21 years ago, I used to be a chartered accountant. And for me, this was something, that I began because I was unwell myself. And if you're here today, you might be here for different reasons, but often when things get bad, we decide to make a change. And, similarly to everyone, I was ignoring a lot of things when they were not at their best. And I thought, it's nothing serious, I'll be okay. But the things began to come together, and I was feeling worse and worse as time did go on as well. And it got to a point where I had hormonal imbalances. I was having night sweats in my early 30s. I had a lot of digestive issues as well, like bloating, gas, constipation. I also got diagnosed with early Crohn's disease as well, skin issues. I had sinusitis. I'd been told I needed to have surgery for the sinusitis. So it was feeling tired. It was feeling sick, being on medication a lot. And it was an eye-opener for me one year when I realized I've taken 7 or 8 antibiotic treatments, but I'm not getting better. I was taking a lot of over-the-counter medicine as well, and I just wasn't feeling better. And I thought something now fundamentally really does need to change in what I'm doing. So that's, for me, the point where I decided to start learning and improving my health. Now, a lot of us, what we'll do is we will, okay, let me come off video as well so you can focus on the slides. A lot of us, what we'll do is, we will go on to Google, or we'll look up in a magazine, right? Like what to do. And I used to do that. I'd be looking for that quick fix. What supplement do I need, or what medicine do I need, or what specialist now do I need to see? And it was at a time where I was constantly feeling sick and tired, and it was then making these changes to actually feeling healthier and happier. And if you're thinking, can it be done? It can absolutely be done. And I'm passionate about what I do. I've been speaking on TV, radio here. I've been in newspapers, magazines as well. So for me, this is something that I share, that we can actually take charge of our health. Now, amongst the South Asian community, we do have a high risk of certain types of diseases, including type 2 diabetes and heart disease. And to a large extent, these are, caused by our lifestyles, our dietary changes, right? Even our mindset in thinking, I can't do anything about it. So what we want to do today is look at, crossing this bridge to wellness. And I'd like you just to begin thinking. You can share here in the chat box, with Chandni, with myself. What is your why for joining here today? We've got a full house of people here today, and it's exciting. It's really good that you want to make a change, which is why you are here this evening. But what is your why? Is it because you've got aches and pains in the body? Is it affecting your mobility? Is it being at a higher risk of type 2 diabetes, or maybe you've already got the diagnosis, whether it's diabetes or high cholesterol or blood pressure? Have you been told by your doctor, you've got 3 months or 6 months, go make a change, or else you're going to be on medication? Some of you might be women here, in your 40s and above, and you're trying to understand how to support your hormones. For some of you, it might be you're here because you want to age healthily, you want to have, better digestion. You don't want to be tired all the time. You find that walking up the stairs is exhausting, right? You're breathless. Many of you will probably be here because you want to lose weight. You don't want to buy clothes a larger size. Being overweight is affecting your self-esteem, your confidence. And even being overweight does increase the risk of certain types of cancers too as well. So, there's many reasons why you're here. And it'd be wonderful if at the start of today, right, this session, you begin to just think about what your why is. Because when you get clear on your why, you'll do something about it. If your why is not important, you're most likely just, going to say, well, that was interesting and I don't need to do anything. I'd love for you to leave today thinking, there are things that I can take charge of my own health with. And we all find that we are healthy, we know what to do, but we get stuck on a downward spiral. That was for me where I got, right, stuck. You get busy, you get busy with either home, work, family, other commitments, and when you're busy, you get tired, you're overwhelmed with all the different responsibilities you have. And the one thing that we let go of, we're always on top of our work. We'll make sure that there is food at home for the children. We're always looking after others, but sometimes we stop prioritizing ourselves. And when we don't prioritize our health, one of the things that happens is we decrease our own physical activity, right? It might be saying, oh, it's okay, I can't go for a walk today. I'll go tomorrow. Tomorrow never seems to come. Or because you're in a rush, you're feeling tired, you want to have the convenient processed foods, you give in to cravings, and then you get addicted to these foods, these sugary foods, these high-fat foods. They are quite addictive. And for some people, it might be, a health condition or a hormonal change that has actually caused for you the weight gain, right? So you're thinking, what can I now do, right, to improve it? But you feel it's impossible, right? And this is where I step in often when my clients come to me. They're in this domino effect, right? They've gained the weight. They're already struggling with low self-esteem, confidence. They're not feeling motivated. There's comfort eating. Sometimes people aren't meeting people socially because they don't like the way they're feeling. And that just continues this effect of, unhealthy eating, weight gain, lethargy, decreasing in physical activity. And that's when we get these health conditions and worsening of the hormonal, balance as well. And I want you to see that just by taking charge of your health, you can see a change. And this is one of my clients, Hema, who, when she got in touch with me, she was in a lot of pain. She had a lot of pain in her knees. She was on strong painkillers. She had, because of the pain in her body, she wasn't walking because she didn't feel good. She was on that downward spiral. She wasn't eating the best. And she took charge of her health. It starts with awareness, and it starts with taking personal responsibilities. And within 6 months, she lost 14 kilos, but she reduced stress levels. She inspired her family to improve their diet. Most importantly, she's pain-free. She came off the painkillers. For somebody who couldn't walk more than 20 minutes before, she is so active now. Her blood pressure, improved. Her cholesterol levels improved as well. So it doesn't take much to do this. It's eating your normal everyday food that you are eating to do this. Now, what is your BMI? Do you know what your BMI is, right? Are you aware if you are overweight or if you are in that obese category? If we are from an Asian, Chinese, Middle Eastern, Black African, or African Caribbean family background, we have to use a lower BMI score to measure the overweight and obesity numbers. I used to think it was over 25, right? If you're over 25, you're in the overweight range, or if you're over 30, you're in that obese range. But the NHS, this is from the NHS, right? You can go to this website, you can put in, what your height is and what your weight is, and you'll find out what your BMI is. Start with this just to be aware of what are your numbers, so then you can do something about it. Don't hide away from taking your weight. It's easy just to say, I don't want to know what my weight is. It's going to be high. It's very easy to be in the dark, but when we don't know where we are, things get worse. So just, simple thing like, what is your weight? Right? And then understanding what has caused you to gain this weight as well. Is it your eating habits? Is it some of the Indian foods you might be having? Is it having too many of the convenience foods? Is it stress? Is it your lifestyle? Do you live quite a sedentary lifestyle? Is it sleep? So there's many things that come together to affect our well-being. It's never just one thing, which is why it's going to take more than one thing to get better as well. But that's not difficult because we bring it gradually. Now, for today's training, we're focusing just on, looking at the Indian meals, but please do also take into account, stress, lifestyle, sleep, if you are having too many convenience foods as well. So we can get into this cycle, right, where we say, which is when my clients get in touch with me, because they'll get into a point where the weight gain is leading to health issues. It might be the weight gain is leading to hormonal imbalances or insulin resistance, and then having maybe insulin resistance is making it harder to now lose the weight. So it's like getting caught up in this cycle, which you're finding really difficult to break out of. But you can break out of it. And mindset really is key. Mindset really is very important as you are making these changes. So, we've got to be thinking about coming out of the downward spiral, making positive changes and saying, I can take charge of my well-being and I can make changes. So you can either type it here, or let Chandni know that I can do it, or you can just say to yourself, I can do it, because when you say you can, you will. Right. And this is Anita. Anita had been diagnosed with type 2 diabetes. She got in touch with me last year. And when she got in touch with me, she'd just been diagnosed with being diabetic. She got PCOS as well. She'd been put on metformin, and she's got young children. She didn't want this to be her life. She didn't want to have future complications, that come with diabetes, which could be, it affects, your kidneys, your eyesight. It can also be affecting, your nerves, your limbs. So it's many things, that it can affect. So there are 3 pillars, the way I guide, and one of them is diet, which we're looking at today. Second is lifestyle, and third is mindset. And what we want to do is say, actually, Indian food can be healthy. The key is to learning how to cook it right. The problem arises when, we might be making mistakes. So we don't want to make mistakes. And this is what I'd like you to do. Can you measure the amount of sugar that you are using? Really important that you start measuring the sugar. Something like jaggery, good. We think, yes, it's a healthy sugar. It's a natural sugar. It's a wonderful sugar sweetener to have. But it is still a sugar. You need to measure it. Now, if you're using the block of jaggery, it's very possible to end up having more of it. So you can get the powdered jaggery, or you can grate the jaggery and use it. So measure it, know how much you're using, because even too much of a good thing becomes unhealthy. So it's a good sugar, but we should be measuring it, because it still is, at the end of the day, a sweetener. And similarly, with the oils that you are using, you've got to measure them. Don't just pour, from the bottle, whether, whatever you're cooking, don't just pour it and say, okay, I'm using a teaspoon or a tablespoon. I'm sure this question will come up. So I would recommend that if you're cooking for a family of 4, because if you're thinking, how much oil should I be using? I would say for a family of 4, try and keep it to 1 tablespoon of oil. That is, a good amount to be having. And food doesn't stick. Just put the oil, heat the oil, then you can add the cumin seeds or the mustard seeds, right? You can do your vagar, the tadka as we say it, right? Like you can do that. And if it's beginning to stick, then please add in a little bit of water to it so it doesn't stick. So you don't need much oil in your cooking. And in some recipes, you don't even need to be using oil, right? It tastes good just with the herbs, with the spices that we can use. We have so many amazing spices in our Indian cuisine, right? We have things like cumin, coriander. We can use fresh herbs as well, things like mint. Tastes really nice. We can use cardamom, cinnamon. So, don't just depend on sugar and fats or oils to make your food taste good. And can you try and have your treats occasionally, right? I call it a treat. I always call it a treat. I never call it a cheat meal, because if you call it a cheat meal, you're going to have this negative connotation with what you're doing, how you're living your life. And you begin to think, well, it's so difficult being on this diet. I need a cheat day, or I need a cheat meal. Take away that mindset of I need to cheat from what I'm doing. Let's love what we're doing, and let's just have our treats occasionally, whether it's having, your samosas or, your mithai, but have them occasionally. And along with measuring, your oils, your sugars, also measure the salt that you're using, because we don't need too much salt. As I mentioned earlier, we can use herbs, we can use spices to make the food taste good as well, because too much salt, too much sugar, too much fat, it is quite harmful for us. And then try and have whole grains in your diet, right? In your diet, you could have, if you're making roti, use the whole wheat atta to make your roti. If you're having rice, can you have brown rice? It's got, more fiber. than the white rice. Could you have quinoa? Quinoa is a grain. I count it as a grain, but it's a really high protein grain. Could you have things like buckwheat or millet or bulgur wheat? You can have oats. So there's so many different types of grains that you can have. You do not need to go and buy everything tomorrow. Just, choose 2 or 3 that you have at home that your family likes eating, but switch from the refined grains to having the whole grains. And then when you are having, your foods, measure the portion sizes of what you're having, right? If it's rice, if it's quinoa, if it's pasta, can you measure it to know how much exactly you're having? Because again, nobody's overeating vegetables. Having been coaching now for 11 years, I don't see anybody ever overeating their vegetables. But, we're going to overeat on our snacks and our grains, right? Nobody's overeating their dals either. So when you're having, your grains, do measure them, and also when you're having your snacks. And it helps that you can plan and prepare your meals. Planning meals, preparing meals, it just means that you're saving time, you're saving money, and you can use convenience foods, right? Please use convenience foods that fit into the way you are living your life, right? The way that it will work for you. If you want to use canned beans because you're busy working and you won't have time to pressure cook the meals, please go ahead and use canned beans or use packaged lentils. If you want to cook your rice and have it over 2 days, you can do that as well. You could plan your meals where you're making lunches for 2 or 3 days at a time. And planning meals means that you know what you're having. You're not needing to go to the supermarket, every day or every other day. You're saving money as well because you're buying in bulk when you're doing it. And planning meals could mean just as simple as whenever dal is made at home, we'll always make extra dal and it'll go into the freezer, because on a busy day, right, all I need to do is just to remove that container and the dal is ready to have. Now, can you also try and keep to regular meal times, please, right? It's important to keep to regular meal times. It doesn't mean you have to have breakfast every day at 7 o'clock or 7:30. Yes, it can change, but don't take very big gaps between meals. Don't skip meals. If you are going out for a meal, it shouldn't mean that you don't have lunch if you're going out for dinner, right? Keep to regular meal times. And if you're going out for a meal, keep it to something healthy, because you're having your treats when you go out. So just try and keep it to something healthy that you're having. And try not to eat too soon before bedtime. At least eat, 2 to 3 hours before you go to sleep, right? This allows the food to digest. And also it does help balancing with your sugar levels. And eating mindfully is really important, right? Are you aware when you're eating what you're eating? Are you chewing your food well? Trying to stay away from the gadgets, whether it's the phone or the laptop or the TV. Even if you're eating on your own, right? Can you just sit and eat, as you are eating? And be aware of how many times you're chewing the food, because it's really easy to overeat when we don't chew the food properly. So, recommend trying to chew your food, know how many times you're chewing your food, and then, continue with what you are eating as well. And make healthier choices when you're eating out. Now, I'm not telling you that you can only eat, salads when you go out. Yes, you can have your treats when you're eating out. But along with that, eat a healthy meal. So let's say you're going out for an Indian meal and you're going to be having something like chaat when you're going out. So have the chaat, for your starter, and you could share a dessert after the meal. But when you are having your main meal, make sure it's a balanced plate, right? Make sure that you do have plenty of vegetables, protein, and whole grains on your plate always. And trying to make sure that you are hydrated and, drinking water through the day. So, normally the recommendation is to have 2 liters of water for women. That's about 8 glasses, not like the normal average glass size would be 8 glasses. Or for men, it would be 2.5 liters, which is 10 glasses. Now, if you have got medical condition, you've been told to drink less water, then please follow what your doctor's guided you on. But some people might need more water. If it is hot, I know we have people from different areas joining today, but if it's hot where you are and you need to be drinking more water, please do. If you're more active, active, if you're exercising, if your work is also, more intensive physically, then, you might need more water as well. So water is really key, as important as the food we eat. We've got to be thinking about the water we're having. Now, I've shared quite a few things, and I hope you have been making just some notes to think about what you can do to improve your diet, right? Think about what you are adding into your life rather than thinking about what you're taking away. When we think about, I can't eat out or I can't have my nashto, right? At that point, we begin to think, I don't want to do it. It's too difficult. It's going to mean deprivation. But with this approach, what we're doing is we're thinking about what can we eat, right? What can we include in our diet and continue eating healthily. And here are some swaps, right, that you can be making. These are some popular Indian breakfasts, right? And these are the less healthy ones. It doesn't mean you can't have them at all, but, these are the less healthy ones, things like parathas or chevda, toasted sandwiches, just drinking juice, having biscuits, chole bhature, aloo puri, right? Masala chai with sugar. Idli sambar, if you're having just too many idlis and not sambar, that then becomes unhealthy because these foods just tend to then be high in carbs, sugar, fat, and or salt, right? So getting healthier means, finding a balance that works for you, and you get healthier, lose weight, eating the foods that you love. So you can still make your, favorite Indian breakfast, right? But just reduce the ghee or the oil when you're cooking, reduce the salt, right, when you are cooking it, reduce the sugar when you're preparing the meal. So if a recipe asks for 100 grams, right, in the recipe, could you be having 80 grams or 90 grams of sugar? If it's asking for more oil, could you reduce the sugar that you're having? And most people won't even notice that, this change has been made, and it'll be fine to be then having it, right? And here are some healthy Indian breakfast ideas. If you're thinking of what can I eat for breakfast, you could do porridge. Sometimes people don't want to be having a, regular porridge with honey or sweeteners in it. What you can do is you could make a savory porridge, right? Where you're putting some masalas and some vegetables in it, and you enjoy the porridge. You could have scrambled tofu. You can still have your theplas, but along with the thepla, can you have yogurt? You can have poha. But again, if you're having just thepla or the poha, it tends to be just really high in carbs and not enough protein. So you're just adding some yogurt to go with it on the side. Having idli dosa with lots of sambar, right, to go with it. If you're having uttapam, having that with yogurt would be a good choice to be making as well. So snack-wise, we do have, our favorite traditional sweet snacks and our namkeen snacks as well, right? Whether it's gathia, chakri, matti, samosas, pakoras, the mithai, gulab jamun, rasmalai, biscuits, right? So we have, these are some of our favorite snacks, but can you begin just to replace some of these snacks with healthier choices, right? So for your savory snacks, right? If you're doing samosas, can you do a samosa chaat, right? Add some vegetables into it when you're making it. Instead of frying your pakoras, you could use the air fryer or the oven and just, bake them. Can you have things like vegetable tikkis? Instead of just having aloo tikki, vegetable tikkis would be healthier to have. You could be using lentils or tofu also to make the patties or the tikkis. You can make a protein chaat as well with beans in it, lots of vegetables in it as well. You can have oat mamra instead of chevda. For the sweet snacks, you could be having, nut seed bar. You could be having healthy laddus. Your gajar halwa, just use less sugar. Mango smoothie, lassi, just don't add too much sugar because the mango is sweet on its own. Kheer, again, just use less sugar, right, when you're making it. Instead of having too much ice cream, you can have frozen fruit yogurts, right? So it takes time, and our palate adjusts over time, right? Nobody's going to be able to replace their laddus with energy balls or with chocolate balls overnight. It's going to take some time to do this. So allow yourself some time for the palate to change. And there is a recipe book, as Chandni shared earlier. There's many good recipes in that. You can try some of the recipes in there. on how to gradually make a change, and that will allow your palate to change as well. Now, in lunch or dinner, how does your plate look like, right? Do you have a lot of you've got the dal, so this is the dal, this is the tofu, we've got the roti, we've got the rice here, we've got the raita, right? So we can say, okay, fine, we've got the protein, but we don't have enough vegetables, right? And this is a common mistake people make, right? Common mistake that people are making, that they're eating just too many of the grains, whether it's bread, rice, roti, naan, pita, like the pulaus, right? Idli, or the dosa as well. So, if you're eating more of these, are you more of a grainitarian or really a vegetarian, right? A vegetarian is when you're eating more vegetables, but if you're eating mainly more of the grains, I would qualify that as being a grainitarian. So we just want to make a switch where you begin to include more vegetables in your diet. Why? Because if you are eating too many of these refined grains, they will affect your sugar levels, where you do have these spikes, and it puts you, at a higher risk of certain diseases, including type 2 diabetes, right? So what should you be eating? Vegetables. Vegetables should be a really big part of your diet. And it doesn't matter how you want to have your vegetables. You could just cut a simple salad. You could make, your favorite, like bhindi, gobi, bangan, right? Like whatever vegetables you want to have, you can have them. But make sure you always are including plenty of vegetables in your meal. And also make sure that you do include protein. Protein is essential throughout the day, and we can get protein from many vegan foods, right? We can get them from our dals. You can have chole, rajma, lubia, tofu, tempeh. So, there's a lot of protein foods and choices that we have. So just try and make sure that you are including protein in your food always. And you can also be having dairy, right? If you do eat dairy, you can continue. If you don't, then that's fine. You don't need to be having it. And, have whole grains, as I mentioned earlier. It's simple swaps, right? Like white rice being replaced by brown rice. Now, if you don't like the taste of brown rice, you could do a mix of white rice and brown rice that you cook together. Allow the palate to change, and then slowly you can see the changes coming through. And for dessert, for snack, fruits are always good to have, right? Fresh fruits, including fruits in your day is, beneficial as well. So what we've talked today about is really awareness, right? Being the first step to getting started, right? Awareness will always start with awareness being the first step to getting started. And I hope you've been making some notes, so you can come back and watch the recording on what you can improve in the meals that you're making, right? Whether it's adding more vegetables or, having more fruit instead of the sweeter desserts, right? So what can you be doing? Just begin thinking about that. So at lunch, dinner, your plate should always include vegetables, proteins, and grains. You choose what you're going to be having. Because this is not a diet. It's not me telling you have to have just, salads, right? You're going to eat the same meals as your family when you are doing this. So you don't need to cook separate meals. But at times we find it difficult to get started, right? Because we might have cravings, whether it's for fried foods or sugary foods, right? So come off the dieting cycle, come off the craving cycle, begin to have more whole meals, because what happens is when you're on this dieting mindset, right, you gain weight, you're at an increased risk of many diseases. You promise yourself, I'm never going to eat sugar. And within a few weeks or months, you are back at eating the sugar because it's got addictive properties. And even fried foods, right? Like once we begin having them, we want to keep having them. And then we're just constantly having these processed foods. So just trying to reduce, the amount of the processed foods that you are having. And as you begin to make the changes, going forward from today, please start with just one meal a day and make that change for 1 week, right? Maybe you're going to start with a healthy breakfast. So just start with one healthy breakfast and do that for a week. Don't worry about lunch and dinner at this point. Just start with breakfast, right? Do something that's doable, that's practical, that works for you given your schedule. And then once you've mastered that, then add another habit and then add another habit. We want to do this slowly, gradually, and really a step at a time, because we can break this cycle of family health issues, right? You're not destined to inherit the same diseases as your family. And we often think, I'm going to have the same diseases, right? We all have so many of these different types of diseases in our family. If I talk about like my own family, there's diabetes, there's gout, there's heart disease, there's cancer, right? There's arthritis. So there's so many diseases, but we can't avoid them completely because there are other factors at play. But what we can take charge of, we take charge of that. And in the field of epigenetics, it shows that, you can influence your health through diet and lifestyle changes. So that's all that you're doing, is reducing, the risk of you getting some of these diseases. I want to emphasize that don't wait for a health diagnosis. Don't wait to be told you're pre-diabetic or you're diabetic or you've got blood pressure, cholesterol, or sleep apnea or arthritis or whatever the disease is. Don't wait for a diagnosis. Don't ignore that you are at a higher weight. Don't ignore if the meals are not as healthy, because that is going to increase the risk of diseases, right? So instead of sticking to old habits, be proactive, right? Begin to make healthier choices now to prevent future issues, and so that you can also feel your best as well. And this really does work. If you're thinking it's too simple, Sujata, it's too simple. I know you've done things that are very difficult. You've probably done counting calories or stopping grains or stopping sugar. And you can see I'm not saying you need to stop any of these, right? I mean, you're thinking, will this really work? Because it seems too simple. It works because it's simple and it's doable, and you can have your traditional everyday Indian foods, right? You can have your rice, your roti, your bread. You can have all the daily foods, your family's eating, but you just learn about swaps to make and about portions. And that's what I guide my clients to do, is really understand what they're doing. And these meals here are meals that Swati had, when she contacted me, she was at a higher risk of some chronic diseases. And of course, she wanted to lose weight, feel good, look good, but really it was the risk of disease that she didn't want. So this is what she did, right? She made her health a priority. She didn't ignore it. She made her health a priority. She started with awareness of understanding what she's doing. She learned what to do because today we're talking just about Indian food, but of course there's a lot of other foods as well, right? So she learned what to do in terms of a healthy diet, a healthy lifestyle, and a healthy mindset. And she created healthy habits that it became her lifestyle, it became her identity, and how she is then, living her life. And she has made significant changes just by eating everyday foods, no gym membership either. And she focused on habits, right? I'm a coach who focuses on changing habits, not on counting calories or restriction. So she focused on daily habits rather than focusing on the number on the scale, right? Don't focus on the number of the scale. If the scales haven't moved, many people don't want to continue. They think it's not working. Don't focus on that. Focus on your habits. That's what's going to get you there. So she's lost 8 kilos. She lost body fat by 3.6%. She increased muscle while losing weight by 2%. Her visceral fat reduced as well, which is that fat around the organs, right? It's the dangerous fat. So that reduced as well. She's got more energy. She improved her health markers, and she's feeling so much confident in herself. So, she's been able to do it. You can do it as well. And, as we come towards the end of the training, I want to share this quote by Anne Bigmore. The food you eat can either be the safest and most powerful form of medicine, or it's the slowest form of poison. What are you choosing to have more regularly, right? You can still have your treats, as I said, but what are you having most of the time, right? Can you begin to make some swaps? Because you want your food to be like medicine, right? In your body, to look after you. And you don't want to wait for another day or until you're diagnosed. Make this a priority. The best decision we can do is prevention, right? Take charge of your health. Precaution is always the best thing that you can do today. I work with so many people who've left it too late. I left it too late is what I shared earlier, right? We leave it until things become unbearable. So don't make the mistake that I made. right? And which is why you'll see me sharing what I do, because I want you to catch things before they become an issue, so you can always feel your best, right? And it isn't going to be difficult, right? It isn't going to require much effort or time. You don't need to cook separate meals. You can have the same meals as your family. You do not need a gym membership. Of course, if you have a gym membership, please go ahead and use it. But it's not difficult. It doesn't require too much effort, time, money. All you need is just that mindset of, I'm ready to now take charge of my health. I want to improve, what I'm doing. And I'm going to keep it easy, simple, and enjoyable, because if it's simple, you can put it together really, really quickly, right? So in summary, reflect on what you're eating. What does your plate look like? What do your meals look like, whether it's breakfast, lunch, dinner, or snack, right? Vegetables are essential, always. Protein is key throughout the day. Whole grains are important, and you can still have starchy vegetables. You don't need to stop the starchy vegetables. You can still have things like potatoes, sweet potatoes, pumpkin, yeah? You can still have snacks. You need to make sure that you're having water through the day, but also think about the lifestyle changes too, right? Walking, exercise, meditation, and mindfulness is a really big part of my program. And I feel that is helping people just, to take care of themselves even better. So there's many things that you can do to make a change. The hardest thing is getting started, but once you do, you feel motivated, you feel confident, and you want to keep continuing as you continue to feel better in yourself in so many ways. And, this is Krishna. She started with me in the summer, and most people would think, why start in the summer? It's the holidays. But again, she wanted to take charge of her health. She wanted accountability. She wanted to learn. She wanted to be consistent. These are the exact meals that she ate to lose 1 kilo in 1 week, right? And she was able to see the change. So you can do this. Please be consistent. Please stay motivated. And thank you so much for being here today, taking the time. You can always reach me directly by email. You can visit my website. I share a lot on Instagram and Facebook as well. So these are my Instagram and Facebook pages. And you can come and connect with me over there. So thank you all so much for joining today.
So we can start off. So one of the questions is your thoughts on intermittent fasting.
Yeah. So I'm just going to there's a few people who've just joined.
Yeah, no worries.
Okay, so my thoughts on intermittent fasting. I think it's great to do some fasting. Fasting is always beneficial to do. I think intermittent fasting can be difficult for some people. If you're doing the 5-2, the 16-8, and it's working really well for you, then please go ahead and do it. But I would say do something that you can always do. There's no point doing intermittent fasting and you do it for a month, but then it falls apart when you're traveling or you have visitors. So, I would try and keep to, which is why I mentioned earlier, keep to regular meal times. Take a break between dinner and breakfast. Don't eat, too close to bedtime. Don't be snacking always through the day. This is something that we call grazing, where you see something healthy in the kitchen and you feel, it's an apple, or it's some nuts, or it's some yogurt, it's all healthy, or dark chocolate, right? It's healthy and I'll have some. So don't have too much constantly of the foods. Eat properly at meal times. But if you're doing intermittent fasting, educate yourself, please, on what to eat, because intermittent fasting is just telling you don't eat for these hours. It's not teaching you portions. It's not teaching you how much protein you need. I work with so many vegetarian clients, and they don't understand how much protein they actually need. So it's really important that you're able to understand, the amount of protein that you do need to be having in your diet. But great question. So do it, but do it with education.
Okay. One of the next questions is, how do you overcome the initial denial that you are overweight or unhealthy?
I think we all don't want to admit that we are, sick or unhealthy, or, there's something wrong. And I can talk about my own personal, experience as well, where, I just thought these are isolated things and nothing's really wrong. Now, ask yourself, use the NHS website, right? It's a free website. Just put in the numbers, put in your weight, put in your height, look at what it tells you. and ask yourself, do you want to be at risk of these diseases? Today, we've talked more about the disease rather than dropping a dress size to, yes, look good in our, saris and salwar kameezes and stuff. But can you begin to really connect with your why? And if you are feeling, how do I get started? Please watch the recording, which will be shared later. Watch the recording and go back to that section of what is your why. If your why is important enough for you, you will do something about it, which is why I shared my own why. I was actually quite sick. I was tired. Walking was exhausting for me. I was in my 30s and having night sweats and and being told I now need surgery for sinusitis. So it was that realization, actually, there's too many issues now, right? I can't ignore it. Similarly, when I shared Anita's story, she was been diagnosed with diabetes and PCOS. And yes, the weight was always an issue, but this made her just realize, I don't want it to get worse. And she has turned things around. Swati similarly, Krishna similarly. And I have, if you go to the website, the blog, or the Instagram or Facebook, you'll see so many stories about how to get started, because that hardest decision is the first decision. But be honest with yourself and say, what do I want to be healthy for? For me, it was my children were young. I wanted to be active. I wanted to do things with them. So ask yourself, how important is this for you, for yourself, for being with your family, being more productive even at work? We talk about being successful. People often think of success as your work or the money you have, but think about your health as also one of your markers of success as well.
Okay, great, thank you. And another good question, as Diwali and Ankut is approaching, how do we support people who like to enjoy sweet food?
So I would make healthier, I would try healthier recipes. I know you've got plenty in your recipe book. I have so many also on my blog. So try and make swaps. You could try and do like, instead of barfi, you could do like a nut and seed bar. I'll just share that's on the website. You can always just drop me a message and say, can you share that with me? I would also say, if you're making your own mithai, can you just reduce the sugar by 20%, right? If you're using 100 grams of sugar, can you reduce this? But also think about, if somebody is smoking, would you smoke because they are smoking? Probably not, right? So apply this also to the foods, right? Because we don't want to be doing what other people might be doing, right? And we want to keep it to something healthy as well.
Okay, thank you. And what are the health risks associated with fizzy drinks? Do they still raise glucose levels?
Yeah, they do. And I would avoid all the fizzy drinks, even the fruit juices. I would stay away from them unless the juice is made with more vegetables. And also smoothies can be really high in sugar, because a lot of smoothies, the bought smoothies will have more sugar in them. So can you make smoothies that have got some protein in them and some fiber in them as well, so that avoids the sugar, spike. So it'll be, yes, the obvious ones like our fizzy drinks, but also the juices. Coconut water is good. I do recommend including coconut water. You can use that to make your smoothies. It's not as high in sugar as the fruit juices is. And it's a very good source of electrolytes. But with everything, even if it's healthy, keep it to small amounts of it. Like, don't, even if coconut water is good, have a glass. Don't go and have 3 glasses in a day, right?
Yeah, and I think they wanted to further know about diet fizzy drinks, but I suppose in that case they have added sweeteners, so you might want
they
to...
have the artificial sweeteners.
Yeah.
And the problem with the artificial sweeteners is the artificial sweeteners is not dealing with your sugar craving. It's in fact growing your sugar craving, and then you're not able to move forward and overcome these. I would always address, where is the sugar craving coming from? Is there an imbalance in the meals? Is it comfort eating? What can I do instead when doing it?
Great, thank you. And sometimes people are quite confused on what fats they should be consuming, what types of fats, good fats, bad fats. Could you elaborate further on some good sources of fats?
Yeah, so there's so many different types of fats. I like things like avocado, nuts, seeds. These are really good to have. Even things like yogurt, it will have some healthy fats in it. You can be having, the oils that you're using in your cooking. My preference is always olive oil. It's been an oil that's been there for generations, tried and tested. So we need to include fat in our diet, and with the fat that we're including, measure it so you know how much of it that you're having. If you do eat cheese, I think so if you're eating cheese, don't have a salad then that has lots of cheese, lots of avocados, lots of nuts, olives, because then it's become, again, quite high in fat, right? So balance is key always.
We have a question about Himalayan salt. Is it good?
It is good. Yes, Himalayan salt is good, but also the regular sea salt is good as well. So if you want to use the Himalayan one, you can, but the others are also good. There are marginal differences and benefits of each of them, but those are just marginal. Given the quantity we have is very small of them, it's not like we're going to get a lot of minerals from them. But yes, it is a very good salt to have.
Okay, great. And some of the foods we're eating nowadays can be highly processed. So are there certain foods that maybe we should be having, less processed or more organic? Would you recommend buying sort of certain foods organic or
Yeah,
you?
I personally would buy some things organic. I think it's not affordable to buy everything organic. And also if we're eating out, we're not going to be doing everything as organic when we eat out. So keeping a practical approach to it, if you are having organic foods, do those of more of the foods that you have. So, if you're having more apples, as that's the main fruit you're having, then, have organic apples. Things that are harder to wash, like berries, spinach, those you can buy organic. If you are having mainly rice or quinoa, can you buy that as organic? And dairy also, can you buy, your milk or your yogurt, if you're having that, can you buy that? That is organic as well.
Okay. Is sugar bad for cancer?
I think it is. I think it is, because with cancer, our risk of certain cancers like breast cancer, colon cancer, some of the digestive cancers as well, it is correlated to what we're eating, to our weight. So if we eat healthy foods, it reduces the risk of those cancers. So what we want to do is try and have less of the sweetness, even the natural sweetness you can have, but just having less of them.
Okay, thank you. And what are your thoughts on sort of mock sort of alternatives, so like mock meats and the highly kind of processed soys that people are eating nowadays?
Mm. Personally, I would stay away from it. Personally, my guidance would be stay away from it. It is highly processed. I don't understand what the ingredients are when I read the label. If I don't understand what it is and I'm needing to now Google to search what it means, I don't think it's really a natural food. I would say try and eat foods that are closest to their natural form. You can have tofu. It doesn't take long to cook tofu, so you don't need to have the mock meats. And if you're on a vegetarian diet, you've chosen to be vegetarian. This is my view. Yeah, I know everybody's different, but my view would be, if I'm choosing to have a vegetarian meal, I don't want to replace that vegetarian meal with a meal that tastes like mock chicken or mock duck or mock something. I actually want to enjoy the flavors of that meal as being a vegetarian meal.
Okay. Yeah, thank you. And gluten, should we be avoiding it?
If you have an intolerance to it, if you have allergies to it, you should. You may not need to avoid it altogether, but rotate the grains that you're having. Don't just have, wheat as your main grain throughout the day. You could have rice, you could have oats, you could have millet. We have so many of our own traditional grains that we can have, that we don't want to say, well, I start my day with Weetabix, and then I'm having a sandwich at lunchtime, and then I'm having roti at dinner time. That's just one grain. You could say, well, I'll have oats for breakfast, and I'll have, something rice-based or quinoa-based at lunchtime, and have the roti at dinner. So you're rotating what you're having.
Okay, thank you. And just seeing if there's any other questions. What are your thoughts on dairy?
I think dairy is an individual decision. Some of us need it, some of us like it. And for some of us, it might just mean cultural, ethical, environmental reasons. It could be religious reasons. It could be different reasons you decide you don't want to be having dairy. If you're not having dairy, please make sure that you are getting, especially if you're not having something like yogurt, where are you getting your probiotics from? Where are you getting your calcium from as well? So being more mindful to have foods that, will give you these nutrients. If you are having dairy, try and have the organic yogurt when you're having it, or the organic milk when you're having it.
Okay, thank you. Is breakfast the most important meal of the day, or can I skip it?
Um, I think again, and I know I'm saying to many people here, there are different approaches because there is no one diet that works for everyone. In my family, there's four of us. There's myself, my husband, and my two sons. We all eat similar foods, but different foods at the same time. Some might not want breakfast, and so it'll be individual. If you feel hungry in the morning, please eat breakfast. Start with a healthy, balanced breakfast that's got, protein, healthy fats, fiber in it. But if you're skipping breakfast, don't be just drinking black tea, black coffee, because you're doing your intermittent fasting and you're trying to suppress your hunger. If you are hungry, please eat, right? We shouldn't be afraid of food. We should have a really healthy relationship with food where we're able to enjoy the foods that we're having.
This might be a little bit more specific. What advice would you give to people who are underweight and struggling to gain weight?
I think I would look at how much protein are you having? What are the grains that you're having? Are you having sufficient fat? What types of exercise are you doing? Are you doing exercises that's helping you build your muscle, or are you doing exercise that's not aligned with gaining weight as well? But always making sure you're getting sufficient protein would be key in that, and fats as well.
Okay. Okay, great. I think that's all the questions. Brilliant. Thank you,
Wonderful.
Sujata. So thank you very much for that really informative talk. I think everyone here really enjoyed it and learnt a lot. And thank you all for joining. We will make this recording available via Telegram for everyone so they can watch it at a later date. And also we hope to see you at the next webinar. Thank you very much.